Most used SUVs do not fail because they reach some magical mileage limit. They fail because one neglected cooling system, one ignored transmission service, or one badly chosen model year turns an ordinary repair into a bill large enough to make the owner give up. That is why buying an SUV that looks dependable is not enough. You need one with proven mechanical foundations, widely available parts, manageable weaknesses, and a realistic chance of staying useful long after the loan is gone. The 6 SUVs in this video are not perfect, and none of them is guaranteed to reach 300,000 miles. But buy the correct version, verify the maintenance history, and keep up with the basic services, and these are among the few used SUVs that can make a newer, more complicated vehicle look like the risky choice. More importantly, I am not just going to tell you which models have strong reputations. I am going to tell you which engines matter, which years deserve more caution, what to inspect before you pay, and why the SUV at number 1 may be a much smarter purchase than the fashionable crossover your local dealer is trying to sell you. We begin with number 6, the Mazda CX-5, because this is one of the best examples of how mechanical simplicity can still exist in a modern SUV. The CX-5 does not have the rugged image of a body-on-frame off-roader, and it does not carry the resale premium of a Toyota. But that is exactly why used buyers should pay attention. Mazda built most non-turbo CX-5 models around a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine and a conventional 6-speed automatic transmission. That combination may sound ordinary, but ordinary can be extremely valuable when you plan to keep a vehicle for 10 years. There is no continuously variable transmission changing ratios with belts and pulleys. No small turbocharger working under constant heat and pressure. In the base versions, and no complicated hybrid system that requires specialized diagnosis. You get a direct, predictable drivetrain that most independent mechanics understand, and that usually responds well to regular fluid changes and sensible driving. The CX-5 is also one of the rare compact SUVs that does not feel like a punishment to drive. The steering is accurate, the body remains controlled through corners, and the cabin feels more solid than the price usually suggests. That matters because long-term ownership is not only about whether the engine starts. It is also about whether the seats, switches, suspension, and interior still feel acceptable after years of commuting, grocery runs, school pickups, and highway travel. A clean CX-5 can deliver that feeling without asking you to accept the maintenance costs of a European luxury SUV. But there is a catch, and this is where the engine choice matters. The turbocharged version is much quicker, but it adds heat, pressure, and additional components. If maximum longevity and lower ownership costs are your priorities, the naturally aspirated 2.5-liter engine is usually the simpler bet. On any used example, inspect for coolant loss, oil seepage, rough cold starts, warning lights, and signs of front-end collision repairs that may have affected the radar or driver assistance sensors. Test every electronic feature because a mechanically strong SUV can still become irritating when cameras, screens, or safety systems begin producing constant warnings. You should also listen for suspension noise over broken pavement and check the tires carefully. Uneven wear may suggest poor alignment, damaged components, or an owner who delayed maintenance. The CX-5 is best for someone who wants an efficient daily driver, a high-quality interior, predictable repair costs, and enough cargo room for normal life without needing 3 rows. It is not the best choice for someone who regularly carries 6 passengers, tows heavy trailers, or expects genuine off-road ability. But for the buyer who wants a modern SUV without excessive mechanical complexity, a non-turbo CX-5 with records can be one of the quietest smart purchases in the used market. The next SUV is larger, more powerful, and more luxurious, but it comes with one service requirement that can separate an excellent purchase from a financial mistake. Number 5 is the Acura MDX, especially the versions powered by Honda's long-running 3.5-liter V6. The used luxury SUV market is full of traps, because depreciation can make a vehicle appear affordable even when its repair costs remain painfully expensive. A 10-year-old European SUV may sell for the price of a basic economy car, but it can still have air suspension cooling system components, electronic modules, and drivetrain parts designed for a vehicle that originally cost far more. The MDX offers a different equation. It gives you 3 rows, a refined cabin, strong highway comfort, available all-wheel drive, and the engineering familiarity of Honda underneath the premium badge. That does not make every MDX indestructible, but it makes many versions easier and less frightening to own than similarly priced luxury competitors. The V6 is smooth, proven, and capable of accumulating substantial mileage when oil changes and cooling system services are handled correctly. Acura's super-handling all-wheel drive system also gives the MDX better road manners than many family SUVs, especially in wet conditions and fast highway curves. This is not simply a heavy crossover that sends power to the rear wheels after the front tires begin slipping. The system can actively distribute torque in a way that improves stability and makes the vehicle feel smaller than it is. However, the MDX is not a vehicle you should buy without service records. Many versions use a timing belt rather than a lifetime timing chain, and that belt must be replaced at the correct interval, along with related components such as the water pump and tensioners. A seller who cannot prove that the work was done may be handing you an immediate 4-figure service. That does not make the MDX unreliable. It makes documented maintenance extremely important. You should also pay attention to transmission behavior. During the test drive, accelerate gently from low-speed cruise at light throttle and then apply moderate power. Any shuddering hesitation, slipping, or harsh engagement deserves investigation. Some models have experienced torque converter or transmission-related complaints, and neglected fluid changes can make the situation worse. Listen for rattling during a cold start. Inspect for fluid leaks. Test the air conditioning in every seating row. Fold and unfold all rear seats, and make sure the power tailgate, navigation screen, cameras, and audio system operate correctly. Luxury features are useful when they work, but they increase the number of things that can age. The smartest MDX buyer is someone who needs space and comfort, wants better driving dynamics than a typical family crossover, and is willing to pay for preventative maintenance before a small issue becomes a large one. The wrong buyer is someone looking only at the purchase price and assuming a premium SUV will cost the same to maintain as a compact Honda sedan. Buy one with missing records, ignored warning lights, cheap tires, and a neglected timing belt service, and the bargain disappears. Buy a clean one with evidence of consistent care, and the MDX can deliver years of comfortable family use without the ownership anxiety associated with many aging luxury SUVs. Number 4 is the Subaru Forester, and this recommendation requires more caution because Subaru reliability conversations are often divided into 2 extreme camps. One group acts as if every Subaru will destroy its engine, while the other group acts as if symmetrical all-wheel drive makes the vehicle mechanically immortal. Both views are wrong. The truth is that the correct Forester can be an excellent long-term SUV, but engine generation, oil consumption, transmission maintenance, and previous ownership matter enormously. What the Forester does better than most compact crossovers is visibility, usable interior space, winter traction, and everyday practicality. The tall roof, large windows, upright seating position, and wide cargo opening make it especially attractive to older drivers, dog owners, outdoor enthusiasts, and families who want room without moving into a large 3-row SUV. The all-wheel drive system is standard on most American market Foresters, and the vehicle has genuine ground clearance rather than the decorative ride height offered by some competitors. That makes it useful on snow-covered roads, gravel driveways, wet trails, and poorly maintained rural routes. But all-wheel drive does not eliminate the need for maintenance. In fact, it makes matching tires more important, because major differences in tire circumference can place unnecessary stress on the drivetrain. If one tire is damaged and the others are heavily worn, replacing only one may not be the smartest solution. This is the kind of ownership detail that careless sellers rarely mention. Older Subaru engines became famous for head gasket concerns, but later Foresters introduced different engines and a different set of issues. Certain examples have been known to consume oil, and a low oil level can quietly damage an engine long before the dashboard gives the owner a dramatic warning. When inspecting a used Forester, check the dipstick before the engine is started. Ask how often the previous owner added oil. Look for blue smoke. Examine the exhaust and inspect the underside for leaks. If the seller says that adding a quart every few weeks is normal, do not accept that explanation without a professional evaluation. The continuously variable transmission also needs attention. A CVT can provide smooth operation and good fuel economy, but it depends on correct fluid condition and temperature control. During the test drive, watch for delayed engagement when shifting from reverse to drive, unusual whining, vibration under light acceleration, sudden changes in engine speed, or warning lights that appear after the vehicle warms up. A Forester that behaves normally for 5 minutes may reveal more after a longer drive. You should also check wheel bearings, because humming that changes with road speed can become a common high-mileage repair. Inspect the suspension bushings. Make sure the panoramic roof drains correctly, if equipped. And test every driver assistance feature. The Forester is not the SUV to buy if you want to ignore fluid levels, stretch maintenance intervals, and treat warning lights as decoration. It rewards owners who pay attention. A well-documented example can remain a highly useful all-weather vehicle for many years, but a neglected one can become expensive surprisingly quickly. That is why the Forester belongs on this list, with conditions attached. It is durable when purchased carefully maintained, deliberately, and chosen with more attention than the badge alone. The next SUV removes much of that uncertainty by using one of the most proven family vehicle formulas in the industry. Number 3 is the Toyota Highlander, with the naturally aspirated V6, a vehicle that may be one of the best answers for buyers who need 3 rows but do not want the fuel consumption, truck-like ride, or size of a full-size SUV. The Highlander has spent years doing something that rarely creates excitement but matters enormously to real owners. It starts, carries people, handles long road trips, survives school duty abuse, and remains easy to sell. That may not produce dramatic television commercials, but it produces strong used demand. The V6 models are particularly appealing because the engine delivers enough power for a fully loaded vehicle without relying on a small turbocharger. The conventional automatic transmission in many generations is also familiar to mechanics, and generally less intimidating than some newer multi-clutch or highly complicated units. The result is a family SUV that can feel almost boring during a test drive. And boring is often exactly what you want when your main goal is dependable transportation. You do not need the drivetrain to entertain you. You need it to merge onto the highway with 6 people and luggage while the air conditioning is running. Then repeat that process year after year. The Highlander also benefits from wide parts availability, strong resale demand, and a large number of independent shops familiar with Toyota mechanical systems. But popularity creates its own problem. Sellers often ask a significant premium simply because the hood carries a Toyota badge. A Highlander with accident repairs, weak maintenance records, worn suspension, and overdue services is not automatically a better purchase than a cleaner competitor. Do not pay for the reputation while ignoring the specific vehicle in front of you. On earlier V6 examples, inspect cooling system components. Watch for coolant odor, check for oil leaks, and ask whether known service items were addressed. The water pump can be labor-intensive on certain versions, so even a small coolant trace deserves attention. Check the transmission fluid history, especially if the Highlander was used for towing or spent most of its life in heavy city traffic. Test the vehicle from a complete cold start, because sellers can hide noises and rough operation by warming the engine before you arrive. Look underneath for rust, particularly if the SUV lived in a northern state where road salt is common. Inspect the rear suspension wheel bearings, engine mounts, power liftgate, air conditioning, and third-row mechanisms. You should also check the interior carefully for signs of hard family use. A vehicle can have a durable engine, while the seats, door panels, carpeting, and controls reveal years of neglect. The Highlander is ideal for a buyer who needs a comfortable family SUV, values resale strength, and wants a drivetrain with a long history rather than the newest technology. It is less ideal for someone who needs serious towing capacity, difficult off-road use, or a low purchase price. You may spend more upfront for a good Highlander, but the value appears when the vehicle remains usable and desirable years later. Just remember that Toyota reliability is not permission to skip an inspection. The badge can tell you what the model is capable of, but the service history tells you whether the previous owner allowed it to reach that potential. Number 2 is the Lexus GX460, and this is where durability begins to feel almost excessive. The GX is often parked outside shopping centers and private schools, but underneath the leatherwood trim and luxury badge is a serious truck-based SUV related to Toyota's global off-road platforms. It uses a traditional body-on-frame structure, a naturally aspirated V8, a full-time four-wheel drive system, and heavy-duty components designed for conditions far more demanding than normal suburban commuting. That gives used buyers an unusual opportunity. Luxury depreciation can lower the purchase price, while the mechanical foundation remains more rugged than many newer crossovers. The GX does not need to pretend it can leave the pavement. It has the hardware to do it. The V8 is not designed to win fuel economy contests, but it delivers smooth power without turbocharger complexity, and the drivetrain is built around long-proven engineering. For someone who needs a durable tow vehicle, travels on rough roads, or simply wants an SUV that feels solid at every speed, the GX can be extremely appealing. But do not confuse rugged construction with cheap ownership. This vehicle is heavy, thirsty, and expensive to feed. Premium fuel may be recommended. Tires are not inexpensive. Brakes have more weight to control, and neglected suspension components can cost real money. Some trims may include adjustable suspension or more complicated luxury systems, and you need to test every function rather than assuming Toyota engineering makes electronics immune to age. The GX also requires careful rust inspection. A strong engine does not save a vehicle with severe frame corrosion. Get underneath with a bright light and inspect the frame rails, suspension mounting points, brake lines, fuel lines, spare tire area, and places where mud or salt can remain trapped. Surface discoloration is not the same as structural rust, but flaking metal, swelling seams, perforation, or fresh black coating applied over suspicious areas should immediately raise questions. Check for coolant leaks, oil seepage, driveline vibration, clunks when shifting between drive and reverse, and noises from the transfer case or differentials. Make sure the four-wheel drive controls actually operate. Some luxury SUVs spend their entire lives on pavement, and systems that are never used can still develop problems. The third-row seat is also small, so do not assume the GX is a perfect replacement for a minivan. Cargo space becomes limited when every seat is occupied, and the side-hinged rear door can be inconvenient in tight parking spaces. Fuel economy is another major reality. You may save money buying the vehicle used, but a long daily commute can give those savings back at the gas pump. The best GX buyer understands exactly what it is: a durable, luxurious truck-based SUV that trades efficiency and nimble handling for strength, comfort, towing ability, and long-term mechanical confidence. The wrong buyer sees the Lexus badge, notices the used price, and assumes they have found an inexpensive luxury crossover. They have not. Maintenance may be manageable compared with European rivals, but operating costs still reflect the size and weight of the vehicle. Buy the right one. And the GX can become the SUV you keep long after you originally planned to replace it. Buy a rusty or poorly serviced one, and even one of Toyota's strongest platforms can become a costly project. And now we arrive at number 1, the Toyota 4Runner, a vehicle that is outdated in almost every way that can become an advantage for a long-term owner. The cabin technology has often lagged behind competitors. The transmission may have fewer gears. The ride is more truck-like than a modern crossover. Fuel economy is unimpressive. The steering does not feel sharp. The third row is limited when equipped, and the design has changed slowly enough that a 10-year-old model can look surprisingly similar to a much newer one. Yet those apparent weaknesses are exactly why the 4Runner has remained such a dependable choice. Toyota resisted the industry's constant pressure to replace proven components simply to create a more impressive specification sheet. For years, the 4Runner continued using a naturally aspirated 4-liter V6, a conventional automatic transmission, and a body-on-frame platform with mechanical roots that had already accumulated enormous amounts of real-world experience. There is no tiny turbocharged engine trying to move a heavy vehicle, no complicated air suspension on most versions, and no delicate low-profile setup pretending to be rugged. The 4Runner was built around durability, off-road capability, and serviceability, and the used market understands that. This is why prices remain high even when mileage climbs. Buyers know that 150,000 miles does not automatically mean the vehicle is near the end of its useful life. But this reputation creates one of the biggest traps in the entire used SUV market. Owners and dealers sometimes ask absurd prices for examples that have been abused, modified, wrecked, neglected, or severely rusted. The fact that a good 4Runner can last does not mean every 4Runner is good. Many have spent years towing, driving off-road, carrying heavy accessories, or operating with oversized tires that increase stress on wheel bearings, steering components, brakes, differentials, and suspension parts. Before buying one, inspect it more carefully than a normal crossover. Start underneath. Look for frame corrosion, impact damage, bent skid plates, leaking shocks, damaged control arms, torn axle boots, and evidence that the vehicle has been sitting in mud or salt. Examine aftermarket modifications. A professional suspension lift, installed with quality parts, is very different from the cheapest kit someone ordered online and fitted in a driveway. Oversized wheels and aggressive tires may look impressive, but they can reduce ride quality change, gearing, increase fuel consumption, and hide alignment or suspension problems. Drive the vehicle at highway speed and check for vibration, wandering, steering wheel shake differential noise, and humming wheel bearings. Test four-wheel drive in the proper conditions and make sure the system engages without flashing warning lights. Check the cooling system. Inspect for oil leaks, verify transmission service, and look for evidence of regular fluid changes in the differentials and transfer case. The V6 is strong, but no engine benefits from dirty oil, overheating, or years of low fluid levels. You should also decide whether you genuinely need a 4Runner. If your driving consists almost entirely of short urban trips, smooth highways, and crowded parking lots, a Highlander CR-V or CX-5 may be quieter, more efficient, and more comfortable. The 4Runner makes sense for buyers who need rough roadability, long-term strength, towing, utility, simple mechanical design, or the confidence to travel far from perfect pavement. It is also attractive to someone who plans to keep a vehicle for a very long time and can accept higher fuel costs in exchange for proven hardware. What makes the 4Runner number one is not that it never needs repairs. It will need brakes, suspension components, seals, bearings, fluids, and ordinary wear items like any aging machine. What separates it is that the expensive core components often remain strong when the vehicle has been cared for. The design gives owners fewer complicated systems, capable of turning one warning light into a repair bill larger than the vehicle's value. But before you search for any of these 6 SUVs, there is one final rule more important than every badge and model name in this video. Condition beats reputation. A carefully maintained Mazda can be a safer purchase than an abused Toyota. A high-mileage MDX with complete records can be better than a low-mileage one that missed years of service. A Forester owned by someone who checked the oil and serviced the CVT can outlast an example that looked cleaner in online photos. Mileage is only one part of the story. Highway miles on a warm engine are often easier than endless cold starts, short trips, and stop-and-go traffic. A vehicle with one owner and organized receipts may be worth more than a newer example with no history. Before handing over your money, see the vehicle when the engine is completely cold. Check every fluid. Scan the computer for stored and pending fault codes. Look underneath for leaks, rust, fresh undercoating, and damaged components. Inspect the tires for matching brands, sizes, and wear. Test every gear, every drive mode, every window, every climate control setting, every camera, and every warning light. Take a drive long enough for the engine and transmission to reach operating temperature. Accelerate gently, accelerate firmly. Brake from highway speed, turn tightly in both directions, and drive over rough pavement with the radio turned off. Then pay an independent mechanic who knows that model to perform a pre-purchase inspection. If the seller refuses, walk away. There will always be another SUV. The cheapest inspection is the one that prevents you from buying the wrong vehicle. The 6 SUVs we covered represent 6 different kinds of durability. The Mazda CX-5 offers modern simplicity and low-stress daily driving. The Acura MDX combines family space with a proven V6, provided the major services are documented. The Subaru Forester delivers all-weather practicality for owners willing to monitor oil and transmission health. The Toyota Highlander gives families a refined, proven middle ground. The Lexus GX460 hides serious truck hardware beneath a luxury interior. And the Toyota 4Runner remains one of the strongest choices for buyers who value old-school engineering more than the latest technology. None of them is perfect, none of them should be purchased without an inspection, and none of them can overcome years of abuse. But choose the correct version, buy the best-maintained example you can afford, and keep servicing it after the excitement of the purchase disappears. And you may end up with something increasingly rare, an SUV that is fully paid off, still useful, still desirable, and still waiting in the driveway every morning, without demanding that you replace it. Which of these 6 would you trust with your own money? And what is the highest mileage SUV you have ever owned? Share the model and mileage in the comments, and if you want more practical used car videos designed to help you avoid expensive mistakes, subscribe to the channel.